Hi everyone, very happy to be here. So today I'm going to talk to you about the future of food and more specifically how is it regulated, because there are a couple of steps to take into consideration to make the future of food a reality for customers. First, I would like to introduce myself. I'm an independent food law, regulatory, and public policy consultant. I have had the pleasure and the opportunity to work for both the private and public sectors. Like globally, I've worked in Asia, Europe, and also remotely with entities based in the US. And what I do on a day to day basis is that I check if the ingredients, food products of my clients, mostly startups operating in the future of food or new sources of food, are compliant with the regulation of the countries where they want to sell their product. And among the topics that I tackle the most, I deal a lot with alternative proteins, or also called new sources of protein. So, how can we create food that are more sustainable? And also, I work on food tech, so improving the quality of food and the sensorial aspects and everything, biotech as well, and then food innovation. I also sit on the board of the Plant Based Foods Institute and also the Global Food Plant-Based Foods Alliance. And I also work with NGOs, especially in certifying vegan products. I spend a lot of time also giving talks on regulation, specifically at public events, so conferences, networking, and I have a broad network spanning across the whole supply chain. So it gives me the opportunity to see your problem from different angles and also to unlock new opportunities. And I have a background in legal studies. I have a first master's in trade and investment, and second one in food law. And since I love food so much, I also decided to go for a food psychology diploma. And previously, I worked for the UN, so the Food and Agriculture Organization, and I also worked for a big B2B food ingredient company called ADM. And I also write once per month for a magazine specialized in the new sources of food, which is called Veg Economist. So, where are we today? So, the current state of our global food system needs to be improved, and I'm going to explain to you why. So, at the time being, we have crossed several planetary boundaries, meaning that the way we operate right now is no longer sustainable. For instance, our food system emits a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. We also consume a lot of water. And not only for the food industry, but as a society as a whole. And one way to decrease the pressure that we put on our resources, we need to look at specific industries, and food happens to be responsible for one third of the global greenhouse gas emission. And most of these emissions actually can be tied back to the production of meat and dairy, because you need a lot of water, drinkable, to feed your animals and to also to grow crops that could be used for other purposes. And in terms of using resources, also most of them are used intensively to a point that it's no longer a good choice to produce this way, because we are going to jeopardize our resources. So, for instance, take fish farming. That is done in closed environments, because in some places in the world you don't have enough fish to fish in the ocean. And food also has a huge impact in our society as a whole, and how we can use it to create a better future. These are the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN, also called SDGs. And most of them, they can be related to food, such as the second one, no hunger. We also have number 6, clean water and sanitation. Also, number 12, about responsible consumption, because if you didn't know this fact, one third of the food produced end up being lost or wasted wasted, meaning that it never actually reaches the retail step because of poor storage condition, or because the supply chain couldn't be optimized to deliver the product fast enough, meaning that it's no longer edible. So, in order to improve this situation and to deliver new sources of foods to the consumer, I'm going to explain to you what I mean by this term. So, first off, new sources of food are not necessarily those that have never been eaten. It's just like we tap into something that is not widely known by consumers, depending on where you are based. And what has gotten a lot of traction in the recent year is a concept called alternative proteins, and soon to be renamed new sources of food, because people, they want to also understand that alternative doesn't mean that it's something that should be marginal. That's something that can be embraced as the norm. So, and among this notion, we have three different topics. So we have everything cultivated. So it means that you take cells from an animal, you do a biopsy, and in a bioreactor, you are able to then get some ingredients without slaughtering the animal. So, for instance, you will get a salmon fillet without killing a salmon. You have also plant-based foods product, such as processing plants for a specific component of food to get a plant-based meat alternative, such as a burger. And you also have everything related to fermentation. It's possible, for instance, to get milk, uh, let's say, for instance, a specific milk protein like whey, that is made by using fermentation, and you don't have to milk a mammal in order to get some milk. So that's a very interesting technology. And for fermentation, it also has a distinctive advantage that you can actually do it basically anywhere, because you just need the raw materials, a tank that would serve as a bioreactor, like as a fermenter, and then you can harvest what you are looking to produce. And then in the center, you have, for instance, like it's a algae-based drink. So it's from a microalgae called spirulina. This is why it's blue. And this specific ingredient is used to enrich like a drink by adding some vitamins and mineral. And instead of taking, for instance, food supplements like capsules, you could very much take that if it suits your dietary needs. And then on the far right, we have something that looks like a pork beacon. It's made from mushroom, especially like shiitake mushroom. And just to open consumer to a new world of flavor, and I have tried it. It tastes like pork bacon, but it's healthier for you because you have less saturated fat, and it also has a good protein profile. So, what do we need actually to deliver that type of food from farm to fork? To unlock this possibility, we need to actually consider regulations. And this is the key to enabling companies to deliver that type of food to consumers directly. This is actually what, from a legal point of view, we call the concept of novel food. So that's a concept that is coming from the European Union, that was created in 1997. And it means that that's any food that was not consumed for human consumption to a significant degree within the Union before that landmark date, and has to fall in at least one of the 10 categories set up in the regulations. So, for instance, we have fungi or mushroom-derived ingredients on the left. In the center, we have something that is called cell-based meat, or cultivated or lab-grown. And then finally, we have a plant-based source that is Bambara groundnut, and you can make protein extracts from that. You can derive ingredients like protein isolate or like fiber and so on. And in Europe, specifically, all these ingredients, they have to go through this novel food regulatory approval. Moving on, like examples of novel food that we have, like on the far left, we have something called Just Egg from a company called Just that is making egg alternatives from mung bean protein isolate, and they got regulatory approval in the European Union 2 years ago. In the center, we have something called Soline. It's a protein made from air from a company based in Finland that is called Solar Food. And they have a nice partnership ongoing with the European Space Agency to bring that food to the space. And is set to get regulatory approval this year. And then on the right, we have a cell-based chicken from a company called Upside that is currently allowed only in Singapore and in the US. And we have a bunch of companies in Europe working on this, but they haven't submitted a novel food dossier yet. And in terms of food safety data that the company has to generate to demonstrate the safety, as you can see, is pretty broad. Like, for instance, you have to demonstrate that if there is a allergenicity risk, it can be mitigated. Or, for instance, if someone is allergic to soy, then it could be possible that person is like allergic to pea protein. So in that case, you need to conduct studies to write a disclaimer on the label to make sure that the food is safe. And you also have to conduct testing in the lab to make sure that the food is not toxic. And how much time does it take, and which actors you need to involve in the European Union? So you can have a chat with the EU member states when you locally, when you are not sure if your food is novel or not. And in that case, you can have a short assessment. And if it happens to be novel, then you need to go one step further and to submit a dossier to the European Commission. And then the European Food Safety Authority, which is called EFSA, is responsible for the risk assessment. And then once the risk assessment is delivered, the risk management is done by the European Commission that will decide whether they want to allow this product to be sold in the European Union. And this concept of novel foods is also available in other jurisdictions, such as the US, under a different name, and also, as you will see, in other countries. But the main difference between the two is that for transparency reason, in the European Union, you need to notify the studies, so a component of the food safety data, 6 years prior the submission of the dossier, whereas in the US, the assessment is done once by based on studies that are already available to the public. In both cases, if you don't know what data you will need to submit, you can approach authorities in each jurisdiction. And the reason why we see more new sources of food popping up in the US is because the framework allows for like a faster assessment. And one of the reasons is like in the European Union as well, we have to find a solution between a consensus between 27 member states, whereas in the US, it's only one country that is deciding whether or not the food should be authorized. And so, as I said before, this concept of novel foods can be found actually across the world. We don't have a single definition. Usually, it's a food that doesn't have a history of safe consumption locally. And for that, as a company, you need to demonstrate that your product is safe according to the local requirements. And then all the studies that you have used so far, you may be able to reuse them if they have been done according to certain industry standards or international public requirements. But it's possible once you get regulatory approval in one jurisdiction to actually approach another one to get mutual recognition. Or it's possible as well that jurisdictions, they communicate between one another to exchange data and to speed up the regulatory approval process. Like, for instance, you also have like bilateral agreements in place, such as the between the EU and Switzerland. A food that is approved in Europe is automatically approved in Switzerland, but not the other way around. And from a regulatory point of view, the system is also going to catch up with the breakthrough that have happened in the science field. And for that, many countries are going to welcome more widely these new types of foods. They also are working on having clear label. So how can you actually label this product correctly? Is bacon alternative made with fungi actually can be called bacon? That just depends on where you're based. Also, collaboration with the regulatory authorities, if they can support you when you are generating data, or also guide you if you are not sure what to do in certain instances. And you have also like regions that instead of having a system that is like widely different from neighboring country, they will collaborate, like the global, like the Gulf Cooperation Council in the Middle East with Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, Oman, and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait as well. And you have also global standards such as the Codex Alimentarius Commission, which is a joint entity between the World Health Organization and the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization. Also, the latest has released a report about how to assess the food safety of cell-based product. ISO standards also may be applicable to certain new sources of foods, and ISO stand for the International Standardized Organization. And you have also project connected by trade associations, so a group of companies that are working towards the same goal. And this is very much needed in terms of lobbying or public advocacy. And around the world, the concept of novel food can be found across multiple jurisdictions. So as you can see, you have about a dozen countries that have a system in place. But you still have some countries that need to develop a system dedicated to this type of food, such as Africa, or in Latin America, only Brazil has a novel food framework in place. And if you fancy learning more about food, the future of food, and especially how is it regulated, you are very welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I also post 5 times a week on a lot of matters, like ranging from ethical claims to consumer protection, fair competition practices, labeling, advocacy, and so on. So, and among my following base, I also have the current CEO of Nestle. So that's very nice that he's contributing to the space as well. And if you wish to connect with me directly on LinkedIn, you can also scan this QR code. And this is where I stop my presentation, and I'm ready to take